Play for me, just for fun." The boy's fingers hovered over the piano keys, trembling. Sweat gathered on his brow, though the concert hall was cold. The famous pianist stood beside him, hands clasped behind his back, watching, judging. "Go on," the man said again, softer this time. "No pressure. Just play." The boy blinked rapidly. He couldn't see the crowd. He never could, but he could feel them. Hundreds of people holding their breath. His ears caught whispers, shoes scuffing polished floor, the distant creak of someone leaning forward in their velvet seat. He was alone and not alone. All eyes on him, and he couldn't see a single one. He placed his fingers on the keys. The weight of everything, expectation, fear, wonder, sat on his shoulders like a mountain. Then he played. Not a song he had learned. Not something he'd practiced. What came out of the Steinway Grand was something else entirely. Something wild. Alive. Like the piano wasn't a machine but a voice, and the voice was crying out. Pleading. Laughing. Whispering secrets into the silence. Gasps echoed through the hall. Someone sobbed. Someone else dropped a glass. The sound rang out like a bell and the boy flinched, but his hands never stopped. The famous pianist had gone still, frozen in place, face pale. He looked down at the boy, his jaw slack. "Jesus Christ," he murmured, barely audible. "That's impossible." And then, as the boy reached the final notes, a low boom echoed through the concert hall. A gun shot. The boy's hands froze. Screams erupted. The lights snapped out. And somewhere, just offstage, a woman cried out one word. "Jamal." But who was she? Jamal was 10 years old when he first touched a piano. It was in the church basement. Mold on the walls. Peeling paint. It smelled like old Bibles and mop water, but he liked it down there. It was quiet. No yelling. No sirens. Just quiet. He didn't know what the big wooden box was. He ran his fingers across the keys like a kid learning to read Braille. Each one felt the same, but the sounds, those were different. The first key he pressed made a low, soft hum that vibrated his whole body. The next one was sharper, then brighter, then sad. He started coming down every day after school. When the janitor wasn't around, he'd sneak inside. He didn't know how to play, but he pressed keys until they sounded like something. He listened harder than most kids ever had to. He had to, really. His ears were his eyes. His mother didn't know. She was too tired, too busy, too everything. Sometimes she came home from her third shift and sat on the couch with her hands pressed to her eyes like she was trying to hold her brain inside her skull. "You're quiet," she said one night, not looking up. "What are you always thinking about?" Jamal opened his mouth to tell her. About the piano. About the sounds. About how he could hear shapes in them, like colors, like movement. But then her head dropped back against the cushions and she was asleep. So he didn't say anything. The next week, the piano was locked. He didn't know why, just that the keys wouldn't move anymore. He pressed on them so hard his fingers turned red. Nothing. He sat on the floor and cried, quietly, in the dark. He didn't know the janitor was standing in the doorway. The man was old, wiry, with big hands and skin the color of tree bark. "What you crying for, boy?" Jamal stiffened. The man stepped inside. "You like that thing?" Jamal wiped his nose. "I was just." "You play." He shook his head. The janitor walked over, pulled a key from around his neck, opened the lid. The smell of old wood and dust puffed out like a memory. "Go on," the man said. Jamal sat up on the bench, pressed a key. The sound sang out, as warm as ever. The janitor didn't say a word. He just nodded, closed the door behind him, and left the boy alone with the music. That's how it started. Jamal didn't go to music school, didn't have lessons, couldn't read sheet music. He just played. At first, he copied things he heard. The ice cream truck jingle, a commercial, a ringtone. Then he started changing them, bending the sound like light in water. When he turned 12, he played in the church one Sunday after the regular pianist got sick. It was just supposed to be a hymn. But when he touched the keys, it changed. People didn't sing along. They just listened. One woman fainted. Another clutched her chest and cried. No one said it. But everyone knew something was different about this boy. He was 15 when a video of him playing went viral. A local choir director recorded him at a fundraiser. Someone uploaded it. Then someone else shared it. Then someone big, some producer, maybe, retweeted it with one word, unreal. Overnight, everyone wanted to know who the blind black kid was who could play Chopin without ever seeing a note. They came calling. Reporters, agents, schools, and one man in particular, Thomas Grayson, a legend, one of the most famous classical pianists in the world, known for his perfectionism, for his arrogance, for his refusal to mentor anyone. Until now, he flew out to meet Jamal, sat stiff-backed in a room with peeling paint and cracked linoleum, staring at the boy like he was an unsolvable riddle. "Play something," he said. Jamal did. Grayson didn't blink. "Where'd you learn that?" "I didn't," Jamal said. "It's just something I hear." That was the beginning. Grayson flew him out to New York. Private lessons, a shot at Juilliard, auditions, big concerts, all fast, all loud, all terrifying. "You're not ready," Grayson said once. "But you're not normal either." And then one night, backstage before a major concert, Grayson said it. "Play something, just for fun." Jamal hesitated. "It doesn't have to be perfect," Grayson said, softer than usual. "Just show me who you are." And Jamal did. He played the song that had been inside him since he was 10, the one he didn't even know had a name. Then came the gasps, the crowd going silent, the sobbing. Then came the gunshot, and the scream. Jamal. Who was that voice? Why did she sound so scared? And why did Grayson look like he'd seen a ghost? The woman's voice cut through the dark like a knife. "Jamal." The boy didn't move. His hands were still on the keys, fingers frozen in midair. His ears were doing what his eyes couldn't, scanning the room, searching for answers. Panic washed over the concert hall like a wave. Shoes scrambled against tile. People shouted. One man yelled, "Call 911." Another, closer to the stage, muttered, "Where'd the shot come from?" But Jamal only heard the voice. Not the chaos. Not even the music that still echoed faintly from the strings inside the grand piano. Just that one voice. A woman. She sounded terrified. She sounded like she knew him. And then, footsteps. Fast. Rushing. Closer. The creak of the stage door. A hand touched his shoulder. "Jamal," the woman said again, this time quieter. Her voice shook. "It's okay. I'm here. I'm right here." But he didn't know her. He turned his head, confused. "Who are you?" The woman didn't answer. He could feel her hand tremble on his back. Then Grayson's voice snapped out like a whip. "Get him out of here. Now." Someone else, another man, maybe security, grabbed Jamal's arm. "Come on, kid. Let's go." Jamal wanted to speak, to ask what was happening, but his throat locked. He was being led off stage, down a corridor that smelled like sawdust and sweat and old metal. Somewhere behind him, sirens howled through the city streets. And somewhere deeper still, in the bottom of his gut, he knew nothing would ever be the same again. Earlier that day, everything had been normal. As normal as life could be when you were a blind teenage musical phenomenon about to perform for your biggest audience yet. The concert was at Lincoln Center. Sold out. Cameras everywhere. It wasn't just a concert. It was a moment. A debut. And Jamal was terrified. He sat backstage in a small room with gray walls and a leather couch that squeaked every time he moved. His fingers tapped rhythms on his jeans. Not songs. Just beats. A nervous habit. Grayson stood by the mirror, adjusting his tie, watching Jamal through the reflection. "You don't have to be scared," he said. "I'm not." "You are." Jamal stopped tapping. "I'm not scared to play." Grayson turned. "Then what are you scared of?" Jamal didn't answer. He couldn't say it, not out loud. That he felt like a fraud. That maybe it was all luck. That one day someone would realize he didn't belong. He didn't go to fancy schools. He didn't know who Rachmaninoff was until a year ago. He was just a kid from East Baltimore who played in a church basement. Grayson walked over and placed something cold and heavy in Jamal's hand. It was a coin. "What is this?" "A silver dollar," Grayson said. "I've had it since I was your age. My first teacher gave it to me." Jamal turned it over in his fingers. The edges were worn smooth. "Why are you giving it to me?" "I'm not." Grayson paused. "You'll give it back." When the concert is over. Jamal didn't understand, but he closed his fist around the coin and nodded. 20 minutes before showtime, Jamal sat alone at the piano on stage. The hall was empty, just him and the instrument. He placed his hands on the keys, took a breath, and froze. Someone was watching. He didn't hear anything, not at first, but he could feel it. That weight, a presence. Then, soft footsteps. "You okay?" a voice said behind him. He flinched. It wasn't Grayson. It was a woman. "Who are you?" he asked. "I'm no one," she said quickly. "Just passing through." "You're not supposed to be here." A pause. "I used to know someone who played like you," she said. Her voice had an edge of pain, like it hurt to say the words. He played like the world was ending. Jamal turned toward the voice. What was his name? She didn't answer. He reached out, hand extended. "Wait." But she was already gone. When the concert began, everything went as planned. The lights, the applause, the hush as he walked on stage, hand resting on the assistant's arm, tapping his cane once on the ground before folding it up. Saturday. The piano waited. The first piece, Beethoven, went smooth. Almost too smooth. Like something rehearsed in a dream. Then a Liszt etude. More fire, more flair. The audience clapped harder. And then Grayson walked out. Took the mic. His voice filled the space. "Before we close," he said, "I asked Jamal to do something a little different." Jamal felt his chest tighten. He hadn't agreed to this. "Just for fun," Grayson said. "No sheet music. No rules. Just him." The audience murmured. The air changed. Jamal's heart pounded. Then his fingers touched the keys. And something opened. Now, backstage in a security office, Jamal sat between two uniformed guards. The lights buzzed overhead. A half-empty vending machine blinked in the corner. The woman who grabbed him on stage stood a few feet away, talking to someone on the phone. He could hear every word. "He didn't recognize me," she said. "I don't know if that's good or bad." A pause. "No, I'm not going to tell him yet." Another pause. "Yes, he's safe. But someone fired a shot. You think that's a coincidence?" Jamal's head snapped toward her. "I want answers," she said. "I want to know who knew he'd be here tonight." The call ended. She turned to him slowly. He stared at her, trying to place the voice. The smell of her perfume. The way she said his name like it meant everything. She sat across from him. Took a breath. "Jamal," she said gently, "do you know who your real mother is?" The coin in his pocket suddenly felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. "Do you know who your real mother is?" The room went still. Jamal didn't speak. He couldn't. His mouth had gone dry, and something cold started crawling up his spine. He reached for the coin in his pocket without thinking, his fingers closing tight around it like it was a lifeline. "I mean your birth mother," the woman said, more carefully this time. "Not the woman who raised you." "I know what you meant," he said, his voice low. She looked at him with something in her eyes he couldn't name. Not pity. Not exactly love. Something messier. "Her name was Nicole," she said. "Nicole Barnes. She was a musician too." Jamal blinked. "No, that's not. My mom is Deshauna Barnes." "She adopted you," the woman said, softer now. "You were just a baby." "No, she didn't." Jamal stood suddenly, nearly knocking over the chair. "You're lying. I would have known." The woman stood too, hands out. "She didn't tell you because she thought it would protect you." "Why would I need protecting?" The woman didn't answer. Jamal backed away, bumping into the edge of the desk. He wanted to run, wanted to scream. But he had to know. "Who are you?" he asked. She hesitated. Her mouth opened, then closed, then opened again. "My name is Kyra," she said. "And I'm your sister." The room swayed. Jamal gripped the desk to keep from falling. "No," he said. "I've been looking for you for 10 years. I don't have a sister." "Yes, you do. And I think someone's trying to hurt you." 10 years earlier, in a tiny apartment in West Philly, Nicole Barnes was making tea when she collapsed. No warning. No scream. Just one sharp gasp and silence. Her daughter Kyra was 12. She found her mother on the floor, tea spilled, her hands curled like claws. The autopsy said stroke, but Kyra always felt there was more. Her mother had been scared, secretive, Nicole kept a manila envelope in the back of her closet, buried behind shoes she never wore. Kyra found it a week after the funeral. Inside was a birth certificate, a hospital photo, a name, Jamal, her baby brother. She had no memory of him. Nicole had given him up when Kyra was still a toddler. No one ever spoke of him again. But once Kyra saw that photo, Jamal wrapped in a blue blanket, tiny, eyes closed, she couldn't let it go. She tried to find him. Foster system. Adoption records. She hit wall after wall. Until a year ago, when she stumbled on a video, a blind teenager at a piano, playing like the world might break in half if he stopped. She watched it 50 times, then 100. The way he tilted his head, the shape of his hands. She knew. It was him. Her mother's son. Her brother. Jamal. In the present, Jamal sat in the car next to Kyra as they drove through the night streets of Manhattan. He didn't know why he agreed to go with her. Maybe it was shock. Maybe it was something deeper. She drove with both hands on the wheel like the world might fall apart if she let go. You were 6 months old when Mom gave you up, she said. She wasn't doing well. After Dad left, well, things got dark. Really dark. Jamal stared out the window. The city lights blurred behind his reflection. She gave you up to protect you. She thought a closed adoption would keep you safe. From what? Kyra hesitated. I don't know, but she always said you had something inside you. Something that scared her. Like what? She called at the sound. He turned toward her. What? She said you could hear things other people couldn't. Not like ghosts or spirits. Just music. But not music either. Like something beyond it. Patterns. Frequencies. She said it came out of you in your sleep. That even as a baby, you hummed melodies no one could explain. Jamal shook his head. That's crazy. Maybe, Kyra said. But then I saw that video. The silence sat heavy between them. Finally Jamal said, Why now? Why show up tonight? Kyra tightened her grip on the wheel. Because someone fired a gun in that concert hall. I know that. No, you don't, she said. Because that bullet wasn't random. She pulled into a side street and parked. Jamal looked around. Where are we? Kyra didn't answer. She got out of the car and walked around to his door. Come on. He followed. She led him to an old red brick building with no sign. Just a heavy steel door. She knocked 3 times. A latch clicked. The door opened. Inside was a small room lined with shelves full of files. Music scores. Old photographs. Tapes. And an old man at a desk, sorting papers. He looked up, saw Jamal, and froze. Jesus, the man whispered. You look just like him. Jamal's heart skipped. Who? The man stood slowly, walked around the desk. His hands were trembling. I knew your mother, he said. I knew what she could do. Jamal frowned. Do? The man's voice dropped to a whisper. She could unlock the frequencies. What does that mean? Kyra stepped forward. Tell him about the sound, Dr. Lee. The old man turned toward her. You really want him to know? He needs to, she said. He played it tonight. Jamal stared at them, confusion twisting tighter in his chest. Played what? Dr. Lee looked him dead in the eye. The pattern, he said. The one they've been trying to erase for 30 years. Jamal's blood ran cold. What do you mean erase? The man nodded toward a dusty reel-to-reel tape on a nearby shelf. Because the last time someone played it, he said, people died. The last time someone played it, people died. Jamal felt like the floor was tilting. The air in the room had shifted, thicker, colder. Kyra crossed her arms, eyes locked on Dr. Lee. Tell him everything. No games. The old man sighed, slow and heavy, like the truth weighed more than his years. He walked to the tape deck, ran his hand across it like it was a headstone. I was a sound engineer in the early 90s, he began. Worked at a private lab outside D.C. Classified stuff. Not government, but close enough. The lab was researching what they called resonant cognition. In plain terms, sound that changes how people think. Music as a weapon. Or a key. Jamal didn't say a word. There were a few test subjects, Lee continued. People who were gifted. Your mother was one of them. She wasn't the first, but she was the most powerful. She could hear tones other people couldn't even register. And when she played, strange things happened. Kyra stared at Jamal. Like what happened tonight? Lee nodded. Crowds would go silent. Some would cry. Some would pass out. One man had a seizure the first time she hit a certain progression. Another swore he saw visions. She didn't know how she was doing it. The music just came through her. Jamal's voice was quiet. And what does that have to do with me? Your mother shut the whole thing down, Lee said. She refused to play anymore. She burned the recordings, disappeared, got clean, started over. But she told me before she left she was pregnant. Kyra whispered, with you. Lee looked at Jamal like he was seeing the past through him. If she passed that gift down. She didn't pass anything down, Jamal snapped, stepping back. I don't have powers. I just play. No, Jamal, Kyra said gently. You don't just play. You transmit. He shook his head. No. I grew up in a basement church with a broken piano. I taught myself. I didn't unlock anything. He trailed off, hands opening helplessly. I don't know how it works. Lee's eyes softened. Neither did she. Kyra walked to a small cabinet and opened it. Inside were rows of reel-to-reel tapes labeled with codes, A31, B9, and B2. She pulled one out and handed it to Lee. Play it. The old man hesitated. If anyone hears this. They won't. Lock the door. He slid the reel into the deck and adjusted the knobs with careful hands. The machine whirred to life, tape spinning, a soft static hiss filling the room. Then the sound began. It wasn't music, not at first. It was almost like feedback, but gentler, like glass humming. Then came a pattern of tones, high, low, in a rhythm that didn't match any known scale. Jamal froze. His head tilted slightly. His ears pulsed. He knew this sound. He dreamed it. As a child. It came in fragments, scattered between sleep and waking, like pieces of a memory someone else had lived. The tones shifted again. Jamal's knees buckled slightly. Kyra caught him. Jamal. His eyes were closed. I know this. The room around them faded. For a second, there was nothing but sound. Then Jamal opened his eyes and said something that didn't feel like his voice. They're listening. Lee paled. What did you just say? They're listening, Jamal repeated, voice flat. The ones who hear through silence. They remember. He snapped out of it. Looked around, breath shaking. What the hell was that? Lee rushed to shut the tape off. The room fell silent again, normal, heavy silence. Jamal wiped his forehead. He was drenched in sweat. Kyra looked shaken. That happened to Mom once. She blacked out after a session. Said a voice spoke through her, but it wasn't Hayes. Lee nodded grimly. We thought it was stress, but there were others. A boy in Romania. A girl in Japan. All of them with the same kind of gift. All of them could hear the pattern and send it back through sound. Where are they now? Jamal asked. Gone, Lee said simply. One was found dead in his studio. Another just vanished. Jamal looked between them. Why would anyone kill over music? Kyra stepped closer. Because it's not just music. It's a signal. Something ancient. Something nobody's ever been able to fully decode. Lee added, your performance tonight, you played the pattern live. You triggered something. That shot in the audience wasn't random. Someone knew. Jamal sat down hard, heart racing. So what happens now? Kyra knelt beside him. We find out what they want. And we protect you. Before he could respond, her phone buzzed. She answered, eyes narrowing. Yay. A long pause. Then her voice dropped. Are you sure? Another pause. Okay, we're on our way. She hung up, face pale. What? Jamal asked. She looked at him, jaw tight. Grayson's gun. His hotel room was trashed. Blood on the floor. His missing. Lee let out a sharp breath. Jamal's heart skipped. Gun. But he was right there. He told me to play. Somebody didn't want him to, Kyra said. And now they want you. The silence between them thickened. Lee finally said, there's one more place I can take you. It's where your mother went when she ran. Off the grid. Remote. No tech. Just instruments, notebooks, and silence. She called it the safe house. Jamal looked at Kyra. Will I find answers there? I don't know, she said. But we might still have time. Jamal took a deep breath. Then let's go. The safe house was nothing like Jamal expected. It sat at the edge of a pine forest in upstate New York near the Finger Lakes. An old cabin, 2 stories, weather-worn but standing. No neighbors. No sounds but wind in the trees and the distant crackle of leaves under deer hooves. Lee parked the car 100 yards away, just in case. If anyone followed us, they won't see the cabin from the road. Jamal stepped out, the cold biting through his hoodie. His cane tapped the dirt once before he folded it up. He didn't need it out here. He could hear the trees breathing. Kyra touched his elbow gently. You okay? No, he said, but I want to see it. The front door creaked open without resistance. Inside, it smelled like cedar and dust. The safe house was simple, wooden floors, tall ceilings, no electricity. Everything powered by fire or silence. But there were books everywhere. On sound, physics, music theory, psychology. Some marked up in sharp black handwriting. Nicole Barnes's handwriting. Kyra walked straight to the fireplace, checking behind an old painting. She pulled free a small box and set it on the table. This was hers, she said. I found it when I came here the first time. Jamal opened it slowly. Inside, a cassette tape labeled For Him. A photo of a baby wrapped in a hospital blanket, a tiny hand clenched around someone's finger. A folded note, brittle with age. He opened the note first. Jamal, if you're reading this, then I failed to keep the music quiet. You were born humming the same rhythm I used to dream about. The pattern is in you, deeper than it was in me. That's why I let you go, so they'd never find you. But if they have, if the music woke up in you, then you need to finish what I started. Love always, Mom. Jamal stared at the paper. The room tilted again, but he stayed standing. Play the tape, he said. Kyra slid it into a dusty cassette player Lee had pulled from a trunk. The sound clicked. Then, her voice. Not singing, not crying, just talking. Jamal, my boy, you probably don't remember my voice, but I remember yours. You used to make this little sound in your sleep, like a whistle with no breath. It terrified me, but it was beautiful, too. She laughed, soft and sad. The first time I heard the pattern, I was 17, playing in a jazz club in Detroit. Something hit me, something under the music, like another song, one nobody else could hear. I followed it, and it almost ruined me. A long pause, but maybe it won't ruin you. Maybe it'll free you. If you're still playing, you've already heard it. You know it. And if you can find the other half, the missing notes, you might be the only person left who can finish the transmission. The tape cut out with a soft click. Nobody spoke for a long time. Finally, Lee said, she was right. There were always pieces missing. Frequencies we couldn't map. Notes that never resolved. We thought maybe it was a cipher or math or just bad data. But maybe she was waiting for you to complete it. Jamal sat at the old upright piano in the corner. He ran his fingers over the dusty keys. I don't even know what I'm playing when I do it, he said. It just comes. Then don't think, Kyra said. Just listen. He closed his eyes, and the pattern began again. First the tones, gentle, odd, not quite a melody. Then something beneath it. A harmonic ripple that didn't feel like music but like memory. His hands moved without thought, not repeating what he'd done before, but answering it. The sound curved inward, then soared. Lee's eyes widened, his playing the second sequence. Kyra watched Jamal, tears rising, his finishing her song. Then Jamal stopped, breathless. From the fireplace, something clicked. They turned. The bricks behind the mantel had shifted. One stone jutted out, revealing a narrow compartment. Inside, a second box. Metal. Heavy. Lee opened it with trembling hands. It held a reel labeled Final Sequence, Do Not Play Without All Three Present. A black envelope sealed with red wax. And a photo. 3 people standing in a room full of strange instruments. Nicole, a man Jamal didn't recognize, and Thomas Grayson. Jamal took a step back. Grayson? He knew her. Lee nodded slowly. They were in the original program together. I didn't know he stayed involved. Kyra whispered, You think he brought Jamal on stage tonight to trigger the pattern? No, Lee said. I think he brought him on stage to finish what they started. But someone got to him first. Jamal's mind was spinning. The tape, the scream, the voice that had spoken through him. The signal wasn't just music. It was a message. And he hadn't finished it yet. He reached for the black envelope, broke the seal, and pulled out the contents. A letter written in Grayson's unmistakable, spiky handwriting. If you're reading this, then I'm already gone. They found me. I've delayed them as long as I could, but the pattern's awake now. It's in the boy, and he needs to find the other two before it's too late. 3 players, 3 pieces. Only together can they transmit the final chord. I found one of them. She's hiding in Alaska. The other, I lost track. But I know this. The pattern is alive. And it's calling them together. Finish the song. Complete the transmission. But be careful. If you play the final sequence without all 3, the world might not survive the echo. Jamal's fingers clenched around the paper. Kyra looked at him. So now what? He looked at the reel. At the piano. At the woods outside, wind stirring the trees like static on a tape. We find the others, he said, and we play the song. A low hum suddenly filled the room. Not from the tape, not from the piano, from outside. Jamal stood up fast. What is that? Kyra asked. Lee's face had gone pale again. It's them. From the tree line, headlights appeared. Not car lights, something else. Round, bright, silent. Jamal turned toward the door as the hum grew louder, the tone almost matching the pattern he'd just played. It wasn't a warning. It was a reply. The lights weren't blinking. They weren't moving. They just hovered, pulsing with that same, impossible tone. Jamal stood frozen in the doorway of the safe house, body vibrating like a tuning fork. The sound out there, rising from the trees, from the ground, from the air itself, wasn't noise. It was recognition. A pattern meeting a pattern. A signal answering back. Kyra pulled him back inside. Get away from the door. But Jamal wasn't afraid. Not exactly. His heart pounded, sure. But underneath that, there was a strange calm. Like he had expected this. Like part of him had been waiting. Lee stumbled toward a shelf and grabbed an old rifle. We have to go. Now. Kyra's eyes were locked on the windows. Go away. If they wanted us dead, they would have shot already. No, Lee said. This is different. That frequency, it's not military. It's resonant. You feel it, don't you? Jamal nodded slowly. It's the same chord I played, but lower, like it's answering me back. Kyra looked between them. You think it's a person? I don't know, Jamal whispered, but it knows me. He turned back toward the piano. Kyra grabbed his arm. Jamal, no. You don't know what happens if you answer that signal. I already did. His voice was distant, like he was hearing something none of them could. Outside, the hum was building again. Slow, rhythmic. Not random. Musical. Lee went pale. That's a progression. It's mimicking your sequence from the concert hall. Kyra's voice dropped to a whisper. It followed you. Jamal stepped back to the keys. Hands hovering. He wasn't touching them yet. Just listening. His whole body was an ear now. The pattern's not complete, he said. Grayson said it needed all 3 players. I'm only one. Lee slammed the door shut and bolted it. Then don't answer it. Not alone. If the transmission opens before it's stable, it'll collapse. Kyra finished. Jamal turned toward them. No, it won't collapse. But something else might come through. They didn't sleep that night. The humming didn't stop. It stayed outside the safe house, steady, like it was holding a note, waiting. Like a voice caught mid-sentence. Kyra paced. Lee checked the locks every 10 minutes. Jamal sat by the fire, the coin from Grayson in his palm, turning slowly, again and again. You said there were 3, he said finally. 3 players. I'm one. The second is in Alaska. You said that. Kyra nodded, exhausted. That's what the letter said. And the third? Silence. Lee sat down hard. We thought it might be Grayson. But if he's dead. Kyra shook her head. He wasn't the third. He was the trigger. The one who knew how to start it, not finish it. Jamal looked at her. Then who's left? Kyra didn't answer right away. Then, softly, there's a name I keep seeing in Mom's notes. Over and over. Clara. No last name. Just Clara. Jamal turned toward the fireplace. On the mantel, carved into the wood, was a single word, nearly worn away with time. Clara. His stomach dropped. She was Hay. Lee frowned. You think she's the third? She must be, Kyra said. Which means, maybe Mom trained her. Maybe she was part of the original project too. Jamal stood. Then we find her. But first, he walked to the tape deck and pulled out the reel labeled final sequence. We take this with us. Lee hesitated. It's dangerous. Even just playing part of it could. I won't play it. Not until we're ready. Kyra grabbed a coat. Then we go. But we don't take the road. If they are watching. Lee nodded grimly. I know another way down the mountain. Won't show on satellite. Jamal turned back toward the piano one last time. He ran his fingers across the dusty keys, just enough to strike one note. The hum outside shifted slightly. It hurt him, and it smiled. Not literally, but Jamal could feel it. Whatever was out there, it didn't want him dead. Not yet. It wanted him complete. By morning, they were hiking through woods thick with mist. No GPS. No signal. Just Lee's compass and Jamal's uncanny sense of direction. Every now and then, Jamal would stop and tilt his head, like he was listening to something deep underground. Then he'd turn and say, this way. They didn't question him, because somehow, he was right every time. By the third day, they reached a small airstrip run by a man who owed Lee a favor. A single prop plane waited, fueled and ready. We fly to Anchorage, Kyra said. Then we head north. She's not in the city. Clara's off-grid. If she's alive. Jamal stood on the edge of the runway, the wind cold on his face. He didn't speak, just held the reel tight to his chest. Lee looked at him. You okay? Jamal didn't answer, because something had changed. The pattern wasn't just outside anymore. It was inside him, like a second heartbeat. And it was getting louder. The wind over Alaska felt different. Colder, but not just in temperature. It cut sharper, like it was pulling something out of the air. Or trying to. They landed in Anchorage under sky smeared with gray and gold. The sun hung low and tired. A man with frostbitten hands drove them in silence for hours up through the Chugach Range, where the roads turned to gravel, then ice, then nothing. Kyra rode up front, scanning a paper map. Lee dozed with his arms crossed. Jamal stared out the window, head tilted slightly, like he was tuning into a station no one else could hear. The signal inside him was growing clearer. He didn't understand it yet, not fully, but it had a direction. A pull. It didn't speak in words, but in pulses. There. No. Left. Closer. He reached into his coat pocket and touched the reel. The final sequence. Every time his fingers grazed it, something buzzed in the back of his skull, like something alive was sealed in there, waiting. He thought of his mother's letter. Finish what I started. But what if finishing it meant opening something that should have stayed closed? They reached the coordinates Kyra had circled on the map around dusk. A small clearing surrounded by black spruce and mountain ash. No house. No sign of life. Are you sure this is it? Lee asked. She wrote it in a margin. Just a number. No explanation. I've searched everywhere else. This is the only lead we haven't checked. Jamal stepped out into the snow. He walked slowly, eyes closed, ears open. Then he stopped. There, he said, pointing to a jagged mound half buried in snow. Something's under that. Kyra and Lee dug with gloved hands, brushing away frost and broken branches. A trapdoor. Steel. Heavy. Lee leaned in. It's sealed. Jamal ran his hand across the frozen latch. Then, quietly, he said, "Play the tone." Kyra frowned. "What tone?" Jamal turned toward the trees. "The one from the safe house. The one I played right before the compartment opened." Lee hesitated, then pulled a portable speaker from his bag. He synced it to his phone and tapped through files until he found it. A low, aching sequence of notes. Strange, hollow. As it played, the steel lock made a loud clack. The door creaked open. Inside was not what they expected. A spiral staircase, slick with cold, led them down into ice. Lights flickered on automatically, solar-powered, dim, but steady. The air was dry and smelled of dust and copper. The walls were covered in sound maps. Diagrams. Notes written in spidery, familiar handwriting. Nicole's. But beside them, other notes. Different ink. Different rhythm. Kyra whispered, Clara's. They were in a bunker. More a lab than a home. There were 3 beds. One untouched, one covered in books and papers, and one made neatly with folded sheets. Someone was still living here. Jamal walked to the center of the room. In the middle stood an old piano, modified with strange knobs, wires, and dials that pulsed gently with light. Lee circled it like a man approaching a shrine. This is a sequencer, but not digital. It's analog. Looks like it's tuned to specific vibrations. Kyra turned toward the back wall and froze. Jamal. He came to her side. A photograph was pinned to the wall. 3 women. One was Nicole. Younger. Brighter. One looked like a government scientist. But the third. Jamal reached out, touched her face in the photo. I've seen her, he whispered. In my dreams. Lee stared. That's Clara. Then a voice behind them said, No, that's me. They all turned. A woman stood at the base of the stairs. Tall, hair gray at the temples, face drawn with age and exhaustion. But her eyes were wide awake. Jamal stepped back. I remember your voice, he said, from the music. Clara nodded slowly. And I remember yours. They sat in the lab for hours. Clara made tea, as if this were the most natural thing in the world. You were never supposed to activate the pattern alone, she said. That's what your mother tried to prevent. Jamal stared at her. Why? What happens if I do? Clara looked at the piano. You've heard it, haven't you? The answer in the sound. I don't understand it. You will. When all 3 play it together, the pattern finishes. It's not a song, it's an invitation. To what? She met his eyes. To something older than language. Lee leaned forward. You're talking about communication? With what? Not what, Clara said. Where? Jamal felt the signal inside him shift, as if the very word where struck a bell in his bones. Clara stood, walked to a panel beside the sequencer. I didn't hide all this to escape, she said. I hid it because we weren't ready. Ready for what? Kyra asked. Clara pressed a button. A screen lit up with grainy visuals, a mountain range, then a valley. Then, Jamal blinked. That's not Earth. No, Clara said. It's not. The footage was from an old satellite, one that no longer transmitted. Yet somehow, Clara had a copy of the last transmission. The land was shaped like sound, curved like waves. Carved in it, massive, deliberate, ancient, was a pattern. The same one Jamal played in the concert hall. It's not just music, Clara said. It's a map. Kyra whispered. Then where does it lead? Jamal stood slowly. His hands were shaking. To the end of the song, he said, and the beginning of something else. The pattern carved into the land looked like a fingerprint stretched across a planet. Not Earth. Not Mars. Something further. Darker. Forgotten. The satellite footage flickered and froze as Clara tapped at the screen. Jamal stood just behind her, eyes wide, ears tuned to the low hum still pressing against the inside of his skull. It hadn't stopped since they'd arrived. This footage was never meant to be seen, Clara said. It came from an experimental satellite launched by the same group your mother once worked with. They called it Project Echo. Lee leaned in. That program was shut down in '97. Officially. Clara gave him a sideways glance. And unofficially, it continued. Quietly, privately, under a different name and a much bigger agenda. Kyra crossed her arms. Which is? Clara clicked the screen off. Turned to them all. Transmission. That's all they ever wanted. To complete the pattern and broadcast it. Why? Jamal asked. Because someone, or something, is supposed to answer. The room fell silent. Outside, snow tapped against the bunker roof in slow, uneven beats. Jamal felt like the earth itself was breathing. Lee broke the silence. And what happens if we broadcast the full pattern? Clara didn't blink. Nobody knows. Not even Nicole. But we think the pattern is a key. A kind of signature. It confirms a presence. Ours. It tells whoever encoded that message into the ground of another world. We hear you. We understand. Kyra's voice was low. And if they hear us back? Clara walked to the modified piano. She touched the edge of it like it was sacred. Then everything changes. That night, Jamal couldn't sleep. He sat at the sequencer piano in the lab, headphones over his ears, fingers hovering. The final sequence reel sat next to him. Still untouched, he didn't dare play it. Not yet. Instead, he tried to follow what was already inside him. The unfinished melody, the incomplete thought. He pressed a few keys. The tones were different here, filtered, sharper, like they carried weight beyond the sound. Then he played one short progression. Just 4 notes. A phrase that came to him in a dream. Suddenly the sequencer reacted. A low pulse lit the control panel. One of the dials clicked. Jamal. Clara stepped into the room, holding a candle. You felt it too, he said. She nodded. It's starting. Kyra appeared behind her, still half asleep, hoodie pulled tight. What is? Jamal looked up at them. It's syncing. The pattern. The signal. It's lining up with something. Out there. Lee was already at the panel, scanning frequencies. It's locked on a carrier wave. That's not coming from us. Clara paled. They heard it. Jamal whispered. They're replying. Then something strange happened. The sequencer began playing on its own. Not loudly, just a soft sequence, repeating the 4 notes Jamal had touched. But under it, layered deep, was a 5th note. One he hadn't played. One that didn't exist on the keyboard. The speakers trembled. The lights dimmed. The pattern looped. And the floor beneath them vibrated. What's happening? Kyra shouted. Jamal was still, listening. Then he said, calm as breath, there's a 3rd player. They all turned to him. He pointed at the wall behind the piano. She's he. Clara stepped forward. Who? He walked to the wall, pressing his palm against it. I don't know how I know, but I do. Kyra joined him. She felt along the edge. There's a seam. They pried it open, an old hatch hidden behind shelves of books. Inside, a narrow tunnel. Cold air poured out. They moved as one, flashlights cutting through the dark. The tunnel curved downward, deeper into the mountain. The walls shifted from concrete to carved stone. Then they saw it. A small chamber, lit only by candle stubs. And in the center, a woman, eyes closed, sitting cross-legged in front of a tuning fork the size of a human spine. Her skin was pale, her hair long and silver, her arms covered in markings, musical notations that spiraled down to her wrists. She was humming. Jamal stepped forward. Clara. Clara stared, stunned. No, that's not me. The woman opened her eyes. They were white, glowing faintly. You've come, she said, voice like wind through leaves. The final chord waits. Lee stumbled back. Who is she? Clara whispered. She's not one of us. Kyra turned to Jamal. Then why does she know you? The woman smiled at Jamal. You opened the door, she said. Now let me help you walk through it. And then she stood, lifted the tuning fork, and struck it once against the stone. The note that rang out wasn't music. It was a language, and Jamal understood every word. The sound that rang from the tuning fork didn't just fill the chamber, it rewrote it. The stone walls rippled like fabric. The candle flames froze mid-flicker. Jamal stumbled back, eyes wide, not in fear but awe, because he could understand the sound. Not like a voice in his head, not like words. It was deeper than that, more like someone taking apart a memory and showing it to him from the inside. The sound said, "You are not alone." Kyra pressed her back against the wall, one hand gripping Jamal's jacket. What did she do? Jamal couldn't take his eyes off the woman. She spoke. Lee whispered, "That wasn't English." "No," Jamal said, but it still made sense. The woman stepped forward, barefoot on the stone. Her voice was calm, unhurried. "Jamal Barnes," she said, "you carry the signature. Your mother gave it to you without knowing." Her sound was partial. Yours is whole. Jamal tried to find his voice. "Who are you?" The woman gave a sad, quiet smile. "I'm what happens when you follow the pattern too far, without guidance. I was once like you, a transmitter." Clara stepped in front of Jamal. "That's not possible. I was told there were only 3. The woman turned to her. 3 who remained human. But others heard it before the world was ready. "You're saying there were more?" Lee asked. "People like Jamal? Nicole? You?" The woman nodded, but they were incomplete. They tried to force the signal, play the pattern without the harmony of 3. What happened to them? Kyra asked. The woman paused. Her voice dropped. They broke. Silence followed. Jamal felt something inside him lurch, like a chord struck too hard. You've seen it, haven't you? The woman asked him. In dreams. A land not of earth. The symbol in the ground. Jamal nodded. Then you are close, she said. The pattern is not just music. It is a gate. And your performance at the concert, it was the knock. Kyra's voice trembled. And the gun shot. An attempt to stop you from opening it. Clara stepped forward. Then what happens if we finish it? If the 3 of them play together? The woman looked at each of them in turn. Then the message is sent, she said, and the response comes back. Lee swallowed. A response from where? The woman tilted her head. Not a place. A frequency. A plane of listening. One we've forgotten how to hear. Jamal stepped closer. So you're not an alien or a ghost? The woman smiled again, tired. I'm a consequence. They returned to the surface just before dawn. The sun broke over the mountains like the breath of a sleeping giant. Clara sat on the bunker steps, staring into the snow. Kyra brewed tea inside. Jamal stayed with the piano. He ran his fingers across the keys, not playing, just feeling. Then the woman, she hadn't given her name, stepped into the room. You're not afraid, she said. I should be. But you're not. Jamal looked at her. Do you regret it? Letting it change you? She didn't answer right away. Then, sometimes, but I remember who I was. That helps. He turned to her. Why me? Why not someone else? Because you didn't just inherit the pattern, she said. You heard it before anyone told you it existed. That makes you the source now, not just the key. Jamal frowned. What happens if I refuse to play? Then the pattern stays incomplete. The signal decays. The gate remains closed. And if I play it with the others? She looked at him with something like sadness. Then everything changes. Later that afternoon, Clara, Lee, and Kyra sat around the piano. Jamal stood in the center. Clara opened a case. Inside were 2 strange instruments. Both looked like variations of keyboards, but with no labels, no keys, just sliding tones and glowing pads. This is what your mother designed before she disappeared, she said. They respond to thought, emotion, memory. Lee hooked up the reel. The final sequence is intact, but we only play it if all 3 signals are stable. The woman took her place behind one of the new instruments. Clara sat at the other. Jamal placed his hands on the piano. Kyra hovered near the wall, nervous. Are you sure you want to do this now? Jamal nodded. And they began. The pattern didn't sound like music anymore. It sounded like time folding. 3 voices, 3 signals, merged in real time. The instruments didn't play notes, they played states, emotions, memories, fragments of language so old it felt like a heartbeat. Jamal led the chord. His hands moved without conscious thought. Clara followed. Then the woman. The room dimmed. The light bent. The final sequence played through the reel. The tuning fork in the mountain chamber began to vibrate again, though no one touched it. Jamal felt something rise in his chest. His spine locked. His mind widened like a radio dial turning. Outside, the sky changed. Clouds split. Light fractured. The snow hovered mid-fall. The pattern finished. And the response came. It didn't come with thunder, or fire, or some ship in the sky. It came as a whisper, a voice in every one of their minds at once. And it said, "We hear you." Kyra dropped to her knees. Lee stumbled back, tears in his eyes. Clara covered her mouth. The woman sat down, her face at peace for the first time. Jamal blinked. He saw a city not of stone but of vibration. Towers of frequency, roads of resonance, lives made of light. He saw his mother, younger, smiling, playing the first notes of a lullaby she never finished. And he saw himself, older, speaking a language made entirely of tone. Then the voice returned. Now come and learn what you truly are. Jamal opened his eyes. The sky above Alaska was quiet again. Still, but everything inside him had changed. He turned to Kyra. I have to go. Her eyes brimmed. Go away. He smiled. To the other side of the song. Jamal stood at the edge of something invisible. Not a cliff, not a doorway, something else. Like a ripple in reality. A seam. The air around him buzzed with silence, not absence of sound, but a silence so dense it had texture. If he reached out, he felt sure he'd touch it like glass. Behind him, Kyra stood still, arms crossed over her chest like she was trying to hold herself together. You said, go. Jamal nodded. The pattern opened a channel. It's not just music. It's a transit. They responded. Kyra took a step closer. And you're just going to walk into it? Whatever it is. I think I already started, he said softly, back when I played in the church basement. She blinked hard, fighting tears. You're just a kid from East Baltimore. You used to steal Twizzlers from the corner store and pretend you knew what Beethoven sounded like. Now you're telling me you're some kind of, what, messenger? He smiled at that. I'm still that kid. Clara stepped up beside Kyra. He's not leaving forever. But Jamal looked at her. You don't know that. The woman, the one with the white eyes and the tuning fork, approached quietly. She carried a small case, plain and black. She handed it to Jamal. What's this? Something your mother left behind, she said. It wasn't meant to be opened until the pattern was complete. Jamal opened the case. Inside, a cloth-wrapped object, a folded paper with 6 notes written in a circle, and a photo of Nicole holding a baby in a hospital blanket. On the back of the photo, in handwriting that shook slightly, Jamal, don't fear the ending. It's not an exit. It's a return. He held the picture in one hand, the cloth-wrapped item in the other. Slowly, he unwrapped it. It was a tuning fork, but different from the one in the mountain. This one was etched with markings, scales that weren't Western. Notes from systems no human had ever recorded. Clara looked at it with awe. That's not made here. Kyra backed away slightly. Jamal. But he was already walking toward the center of the clearing. The hum rose again. Not the sound of the reel. This was coming from above. A perfect, rising tone. Not loud. Not forceful. Just pure. Jamal stepped into it. The snow at his feet didn't crunch. It shimmered. And then the space in front of him folded in like a reflection in shattered glass. A doorway, 10 feet wide, split the air open, not a portal, not a beam, just a shifting curtain of light that pulsed to the rhythm of the pattern. The final chord. Jamal turned back. Kyra ran to him, threw her arms around him. I just got you back. I'm not letting you go again. He held her close. You never lost me. You're part of this, too. Lee nodded from the cabin steps. We'll keep it safe. Whatever this is, we'll protect it. Clara stepped forward. You may not come back through the same way. I know. Do you want to? Jamal looked up, thought of his mother, of Grayson, of the broken piano in the church basement, of the first time he touched a key and felt the world lean in. I don't know yet, he said, but I think I need to find out what's waiting on the other side of the song. The white-eyed woman stood beside the rift. She reached out and struck the new tuning fork against her palm. It rang, and the air opened wider. Jamal stepped forward. The snow shimmered beneath him like light caught in slow water. Then he turned, one last time, and smiled. And he stepped through. There was no flash, no boom, no burn. He just wasn't there anymore. The rift hummed quietly for a few more seconds. Then it closed. Gone. Kyra stared at the empty space, her arms still wrapped around the air where he had stood. Clara rested a hand on her shoulder. He'll come back different, but he'll come back. Lee wiped his glasses. If he comes back, what do we do until then? The woman looked up at the sky. We listen. Somewhere else. Jamal opened his eyes. He was standing in a city made of resonance. Buildings that weren't built, they were sung into being. Every surface hummed with harmonic language. Every step he took matched a tone. And ahead of him stood a figure. Not human. Not alien. Just pattern. It held out its hand. And when Jamal reached back, he didn't feel fear. He felt recognition. Like a song finally resolving. The city didn't have a name. It was the name. Jamal could feel it every time his foot hit the ground. The stones beneath him vibrated in perfect pitch, not randomly, but in sync with him. The rhythm of his steps wasn't something he created. It was something the city had always expected. Like it had been waiting for him. He wasn't alone. The figure ahead stood tall, not humanoid, not monstrous, just formed. Its edges were made of light, not glowing, not blinding, shaped like it had been sculpted from frequencies and memory. It didn't walk. It moved through space the way breath moved through a flute, soft, constant, inevitable. Jamal stepped closer. "Do you understand me?" The figure nodded, not with a head, with a pulse. It raised one arm, and a swirl of color appeared in the air, a constellation made of sound, each point a note, each line a progression. It looked like a song written in 3 dimensions. And then, without moving its mouth, it spoke, not in words, but in understanding. "We gave the pattern to those who could feel it. You were not chosen. You were aligned." Jamal frowned. "Aligned with what?" "With the resonance that binds origin to meaning." The answer didn't clarify anything. And yet, Jamal felt it. Like a truth deeper than thought. He walked further into the city. Structures rose around him, not as buildings, but as living chords. Some looked like towers, others like inverted bells that hovered mid-E, slowly spinning. Beneath it all, a song. Quiet. Constant. Jamal turned back to the figure. "What happens now? What did I open?" The figure moved its arm again, and a ripple of vibration poured out from its center. The sound filled Jamal's chest, wrapped around his ribs, pressed into his bones. A memory surfaced, his mother's hands, guiding his fingers over the piano keys. Not teaching, just showing. Then another, the concert hall. The audience silent. The gasp, the shut, and another still. Kyra, reaching for him through the blur of light. "You open the first gate. There are others." Jamal felt his throat tighten. "Why me?" "Because you are music that remembers itself." He didn't know what that meant, but he understood something else now. This wasn't a reward. It wasn't a destination. It was the beginning of a much bigger map. Back on Earth, Kyra sat outside the cabin, knees drawn to her chest. Snow had started falling again, soft this time. No hum, no signal, just quiet. Lee sat beside her, sketching something in a notebook. "He's gone," she said. "He's traveling," Lee said. "Big difference." Clara emerged from the cabin holding 2 mugs. She handed one to Kyra and sat beside them. "I went through more of Nicole's notes," she said. "I think she knew what Jamal would become. Not just a musician. Not even a transmitter." Kyra looked up. "Then what?" Clara sipped her tea. "A bridge." Inside the cabin, the white-eyed woman sat alone at the piano. Her fingers danced across the keys, but she didn't make a sound. Not yet. She was waiting. Not for Jamal to return, but for the next chord. Somewhere else again, Jamal stood before a massive field of what looked like tall glass reeds. They shimmered in the air like harp strings. He reached out and touched one. It sang, and all the others answered. Then the ground cracked beneath him. Light poured upward, not blinding, but clear. A tunnel of sound leading downward. The figure appeared again, closer now, more distinct, still formless but no longer strange. "This is where you begin the second movement." Jamal took a step forward. "And after that, then we play together." Jamal took a deep breath, and he stepped into the light. Back on Earth, at the edge of the forest, a child approached the old cabin. She was no older than 7, hair braided, eyes wide. In her hand, a piece of sheet music she didn't understand, drawn in crayon and rhythm. She stopped at the door. The woman opened it before she could knock. "You heard it," she said. The girl nodded. "It's in my dreams." The woman smiled. "Then come in. The next bridge has already started to form." The second movement began in a place with no sky. Jamal floated, not in space, but in a kind of silence shaped by intent. Around him, the city of resonance had peeled back like a curtain, revealing deeper layers, not of place, but of possibility. He wasn't alone here, either. Now there were many. Shapes, echoes, others like him, but changed. Some glowed with color he had no words for. Others pulsed with tempo instead of breath. They acknowledged him not with language, but with rhythm. Every being was a phrase. And Jamal, he was a chorus. One stepped forward, slim, silver, with a face that shifted between thousands of expressions a second. Its presence sparked something in Jamal's chest. It pulsed once, gently, and a vision flowed into him. Earth, but not his earth. Older, not ancient, but after. Cities wrapped in song. No violence, no governments, just balance held by shared frequencies. The voice entered his mind again, but now it sounded more familiar. Less foreign. You are the first complete signal since the fracture. Jamal blinked. Fracture. When humans turned against their own harmonics. When they stopped listening to what was embedded in their origin. Jamal felt a weight in his chest. A sadness that wasn't his. Maybe it never had been. You are not alone anymore. And neither are they. The pattern will finish in them, too. On Earth, in the clearing by the safe house, the child sat at the piano. Kyra watched from the corner, mouth slightly open. The girl didn't look afraid. She played with the same calm Jamal once had. Fingers drifting, almost weightless. The white-eyed woman stood behind her. Not instructing, just listening. Each note the child played shimmered against the walls. Not loud, but dense. Like rain that remembered where it had fallen before. Lee stepped inside, carrying a laptop. You need to hear this. He played a file, global radio disturbances recorded just after Jamal vanished. Low hums, almost below hearing. He said, but then, melodies, barely detectable. And then this. He hit play. From the speakers, a recording of Jamal's final chord in the cabin. But layered under it, clear as glass now, was another chord. A reply. Jamal stood before a platform of living sound. The figure beside him motioned for him to step forward. This is the gate of return. Jamal frowned. I thought I wasn't supposed to come back the same. You won't, but you must return, because others will follow. The figure raised a hand. From below, 3 strands of light rose, each one a frequency connected to a person on Earth. One was Kyra. One was the girl at the piano. And the third. Jamal gasped. His mother. Still alive. Somewhere hidden. Sleeping? Hiding? Protected? He didn't know. But her sound was still active. Still in tune. Kyra sat beside the girl. What's your name? The child whispered, Omori. She kept playing. And suddenly, without warning, the windows of the cabin burst outward with light. Not heat. Not fire. Just a ripple. And standing in the center of it, his hands open, his eyes calm, was Jamal. Changed. Taller, maybe. Or maybe it was how he held himself now. The same face, but no longer just a boy. He walked toward Kyra slowly. She stood, speechless. He hugged her. She whispered, You came back. I had to, he said. The second bridge is already here. He turned to the child. You've heard it, he said gently. Omori nodded. It's always been there. Jamal looked back at the others. It's time to build the harmony. Not just with sound, but with everyone who can feel it. They rebuilt the safe house, not as a hiding place, but as a school, a sanctuary. More children came. Not many, just those who dreamed in keys. Some couldn't play music at all, but they could hear it where others heard silence. Jamal taught them not songs, but meaning. How to hold still long enough to feel resonance between people, between places, between pain and healing. Kyra managed the chaos with quiet strength. Clara taught the theory. Lee handled communications. Though he always laughed that the most powerful message Earth had ever sent came from a blind teenager with no Wi-Fi. As for the white-eyed woman, she didn't stay. One morning, she simply walked into the trees. No goodbye. Just the faint sound of a tuning fork ringing in her wake. Years later, the world changed. Not with noise, not with war, but with rhythm. Hospitals began to hum with strange tones that soothed pain. Schools adopted silent learning sessions where children sat and listened to frequencies designed by those who could feel them. The pattern was still unfolding. Not as a song, not as a mystery, but as a language. And at the center of it, always, was Jamal. One final note. A reporter once asked him, during a rare public interview, how did it all begin? Jamal smiled. A famous pianist told a blind black boy to play just for fun, he said. But what came out wasn't fun. It was everything. Then he stood, walked to the piano, and played the first note, the one that started it all.